What's up, everybody? This is Rich Airy, runandwad.com. I'm here with my good friend Chris Garino. This is the Long Run Project podcast. This is episode 5. Chris, how you doing, brother?
Hey, good, Rich. How are you, bud?
Pretty good. Just sweating it out here down in the OKC. It's starting to creep up here in the temperatures. But other than that, life is good. Had a pretty good weekend. I'm sure we'll get into that. How'd the massages go last week?
Good, man. PT is booming for sure. I have a fun story to share with you all. Was at Milestone Running. Was it last Wednesday? That was their 3-year anniversary. Milestone down by Balboa. Go check those guys out. Chad and Greg are the best. But they had a bunch of venues out there, or a bunch of people out there for the run club, and then they have they had a bunch of sponsors and stuff, which was really cool. And I work at Longevity Physical Therapy. We had a tent out there giving away some massages and injury assessments. And I had some guy come up to me. And was just like, hey, what are you guys doing here? And I'm like, oh, yeah, we're just doing massages or injury screens. This guy was like long hair, beard, kind of looked like an ultra runner, And he's like, oh, can you work on me? I got a couple things here and there. And I'm like, sure. He was in town for the San Diego 100-miler. So I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll work on you. And so I start working on him, and we start chatting. And dude's like been everywhere in the world, like running and stuff. And just your average guy, man, just totally hanging out and talking about it, and really cool. And so I get done working on him, and he was super thankful, really, really grateful, really nice guy. And I go in, and I see my other buddy, his name's Mike as well, from Boom Running. And he was like, you know who you're working on out there? And I was like, yeah, Mike, that guy was rad, And he's like, that was Michael Wardian. I was like, oh, okay, who's Michael Wardian? Like, no clue, like, no idea. And he's just like totally just fanning out, like, oh man, he's got this record, he's got this. The dude's like one of the best ultra runners. He's a legend. Blah blah blah. And I was just like, that's awesome. The guy was really cool. I mean, one of the cooler, calmer, collected dudes you'll meet as a pro runner or pro anything out there, I'd say. And the guy's insane. Awesome job at the 100-miler. I think he finished somewhere like 20 hours or so, but he finished 4th. I heard the temperatures were like 90 to 100, maybe 100 plus in the valley out there. His first Masters, I think 4th overall. And then dude calls me up on Saturday for a massage. So I was like, yeah, I'll put you back together, whatever. Work on him for like 2 hours. Go have lunch with him. He takes Claire and I out to lunch and just hangs out with us for a while. And dude tells me when we're taking off, he's like, yeah, I'm going to run the half marathon tomorrow, the Rock and Roll half. And I'm like, are you kidding me? And he's like, yeah, well, it's the Masters. It's the Masters like World Championship or National Championship or something. And I was like, oh, cool. I'm like, yeah, I mean, if you're feeling up for it, I mean, go for it. Like, what am I going to do? Tell this guy, no? I mean, who am I? And so he runs it. Dude runs a 118 and negative splits the whole way, finishing his last 5K in like 5:44 pace or something. Like, just unreal, man. But the guy is like legend, man. I called him the Tom Brady of ultra running. Ageless. He's
pretty impressive. I actually saw I saw that he had ran the 100 and then ran the half on Sunday, and I was just blown away. And I mean, I know he's done some back-to-back stuff like that in the past, and I think it was either last year or the year before he ran 2 marathons in the same day. He won the San Antonio Rock and Roll, and then went to the airport, got on a plane, flew to Las Vegas, and then ran the Las Vegas Marathon. And he won the San Antonio Marathon in like 232 or 234. And then came back, and I think he broke 3 hours for that second one in Las Vegas. It wasn't the goal that he was shooting for, but yeah, he's done some pretty crazy things with back-to-backs. He just recently did some stuff in France where he did like they had a race up the Eiffel Tower one day. He ran a 50K another day, and then might have run the marathon or something else like in 3 days. It was pretty crazy, and he's super impressive with what he can do, and he's definitely an anomaly. You see a lot of these elite ultra marathoners over the past 5 or 6 years, maybe a little bit longer, that have had these hot streaks for like a year or two where they've done 3 or 4 or maybe 500s in a year, and then they're just absolutely fried, and you don't hear from them for a while, and he's continually been able to do this sort of stuff, and God bless him, because whatever he's doing, he's got it dialed in, and he's doing it well. So very impressive for sure.
He does. I'll have to share some stories later at a different time. But yeah, he brought me through his kind of daily, weekly things he does. Yeah, we got to catch up a lot. The dude, I'm just saying, I'm letting you guys out there know he's a super approachable guy. Really, really cool guy. I mean, I was super pumped about the experience. A real positive guy. You won't meet a more positive person out there about running and about just being grateful for what he's got. So, and he's 42, wife, 2 kids. So, no excuses, people. This guy's running hundreds of miles a week and making it work with a family. So pretty cool. Yeah. And a full-time job too. He still works. Like, running isn't his main thing. So that was the thing that blew me away too. I was like, what? I'm like, you still work? I'm like, how do you have time? So crazy though. Yeah, absolutely crazy.
Yeah, he's an impressive outlier for sure.
Yeah.
But so cool thing happened over the weekend, or towards the end of last week. We actually got someone write in a question.
All right.
Yeah, right on, right? And
we should have like a sound or something.
Yeah, I'm working on the sound effects in the intro. That is all coming, people. Don't you worry. Only bigger and better things to come from the Long Run Project podcast. But yeah, so I sat down and I started emailing in response, and then I thought, you know what, I'm just gonna save this for the show, and I told them that, hey, stay tuned for next episode. We're gonna address this question. So I'll go ahead and read this here, and then we can kind of get into it. Question was aerobic versus anaerobic. If you are training in the aerobic capacity method, do Metcons work against your primary goal, not dipping into your threshold? I know you've talked about training just strength and aerobic running pre-race, but are you and Chris driving at the idea that it should be this way year-round? So, reading this based off some of the terminology in there, I see the Metcons in there. I would say that this guy has some CrossFit experience and is or has dabbled in CrossFit, and his kind of concern is if we're talking in terms of like the math and the 180 minus your age type aerobic threshold training, are these Metcons, which typically are high intensity type training where it's definitely more anaerobic. If you're doing these things when you're trying to improve your aerobic capacity, are these going to interfere with the overall end game of improving that aerobic capacity?
Right.
So I mean, I know again, if we're talking just in terms of this MAP style of training, in that 8-week block, if you are doing these types of things, then yes, they're definitely going to interfere with that, and you're going to be aerobic or anaerobic rather, for anywhere from could be as short as 5 minutes, and sometimes it could be as long as 20-25 minutes, depending on your gym and your programming at the gym. And I think the big question I would have for this person would be, what is your end game? What is your overall goal? If we're training specifically for a marathon, and we're doing that, 4 to 8 week base building phase, this is probably going to have an impact on that. And then if we're talking about just year-round training, that's a totally different scenario, don't you think?
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's all about timing and goals, like you said, Rich, and it's all about how to program them into it. And I hope that our message is clear, whether it be training a certain way and not having to push certain things year round. Like neither me or Rich are saying like don't do things that you love to do, because we don't want that. We don't want that to be the message. There's going to be times where, and I'll kind of go off track and I'll bring it back around, but there's going to be recreational things that you're going to want to do. I mean, I surf a lot. I like to play ping pong. I mean, there's like things I like to do that are outside of running and training, and I don't really worry about my heart rate. So it's not like I'm wearing a heart rate, monitor playing ping pong. But I mean, if you're part of a soccer league, or if you play softball or kickball or ultimate frisbee, whatever it be, like that's just fun. That's fun in games. Like that's something you love to do. That's helping you in different ways, whether it be decreasing stress that you hold throughout the day. It's an outlet for you to have some social time with friends or whatever. But like if you're training for something in particular and you're worried about, say, metcons, like, getting in the way of an aerobic base, then you got to say, all right, what's more important to me? Like doing a metcon workout versus like doing my marathon training. Like, do you have a goal of, in your marathon training of a certain time? And if this is going to hinder you within that, in that goal, then, it's an easy choice, but everyone's different. Sometimes people thrive off of those workouts, and I know you, Rich, you like to do them and like to kind of put them in because it's a fun thing for you to do. You got a really good background in a lot of strength stuff, and you've built up, you're kind of an anomaly in a way where you have this strength base versus like and running base. It's kind of like you're a good hybrid mix of the two. So yeah, there's a lot of other things to take into play there. So don't want to ever really put a parameter on anything. But if you are in a base building phase and you're focused on running, and you really are, say coming back from an injury or really getting back into shape after a long long hiatus of running, say you just took some time off, or you didn't have time, you had a kid, or whatever it may be, whatever your thing is going on in your life, like in that 8 or 12 weeks building that aerobic capacity, I mean, there's still other things you can do. And if you really want to do Metcon, I guess the one thing you could do is strap a heart rate monitor on and be very judicious about going over that aerobic max capacity. Therefore, like, say you're 40 years old, getting back into running, and you want to do some CrossFit or some kind of metabolic conditioning, got to, 180 minus 40, 140, don't go over 140 if you really want to, if you're worried about, pushing that anaerobic system. So that's kind of what I got. I mean, I don't like to put definites on anything. I mean, shit, we just talked about Mike Wardian running 100 and whatever miles, 103 miles, whatever that one was, and then running a half marathon like 24 hours later. Like, I'm sure there's nobody in the right mind that's like, yeah, that's pretty much what I'm doing, like, all the time. I'm running 100 miles and I'm running 13.1 at 6-minute pace, like a day later, like, like, so it's like, if I was his coach and he would ask me, hey, can I do these? And I'm like, I'd probably be like, you're crazy, Mike, but the dude would prove me wrong every time because of the stories you've told, because of what he's done in his past, and he is an outlier. But, people respond to different things, some people have that base from when they were a kid or from just training that they've done. I mean, you could have been a soccer player or a lacrosse player your whole life and get into running. You may have a great aerobic base already built up because you have such a very athletic past. So, I mean, everyone's so different. So it's really, that's a tough question to answer. But my answer would be about your individual goals and what you want to accomplish.